Jenny focused her gaze through the foliage and waited for the dragoons to catch up. They'd only been caught once a few months ago. Jenny had escaped with her life that time, but there were several others who hadn't been as lucky. King George, the usurper, had sent his dragoons to apprehend anyone with sympathies to Prince Charles Stuart, the rightful heir to the Kingdom of Great Britain. King George had given Charles the moniker the Young Pretender, and his father the Old Pretender. Prince Charlie's father, King James, had named him Regent of Great Britain, and Regent was the name under which she and other Jacobite supporters were bent on returning the prince to the throne. King George would be tossed back to Germany, where he had been born and raised, and should have remained. Despite the brightness of tonight's moon that allowed them a good view of the road, the brambles and pines were thick, veiling her and her men's massive horses from their enemies. When the first half-dozen redcoats rode past, they did not see the Scots hidden just a few feet away. They barely slowed, too busy chasing phantoms. As soon as they passed, Jenny and her men let out a collective sigh, only to freeze as several more dragoons rounded the bend and headed right for them. Eyes wide as the moon above, she watched them advance. The gold buttons on their muted red coats glinted in the moonlight, as did the muzzles of their muskets, their pistols, and the hilts of the thin swords at their hips. Their dress was so different than that of the Scots. They wore starched white breeches, where her men were allowed freedom of movement in their plaids. Stiff tricorns covered their heads, while the Scots wore soft woolen caps that were broad and flat on the top. When they were feeling particularly rebellious, they pinned white rosette cockades on them in support of the Stuart line. Their leader issued an unintelligible order, and for a second she thought the dragoon was staring right at her. Would he order his men into the forest? Her lungs burned for air, but she couldn't risk even the tiniest sound be heard by these bloodthirsty monsters. She touched her pistol, prepared to shoot if needed, but then he was pointing and shouting for his men to continue down the road. Jenny watched them kick their horses into a gallop, clouds of dust following in their wake. Only once the dust settled did Jenny allow herself a moment to exhale. Despite the risk she was taking every time she came out here, there was no way she'd stop her nightly missions. The fate of the entire Mackintosh clan was now Jenny's responsibility. She would not let her brother's betrayal destroy her clan. Which was exactly why, on this night, while her brother was busy with his nose up an Englishman's arse, she found herself a few miles from an English garrison and several hours from home. For 3 generations, her people had been trying to reclaim their country. Jenny, along with all the other Jacobites, had a restless need to do something to aid in bringing the rightful heir home to Scotland. Soon there would be a war, and she knew on which side she'd stand, with bonny Prince Charlie, the Regent of Scotland. She'd made a vow a lifetime ago, it seemed, to support the Stuart line, and she planned to keep it, to follow in her father's and grandfather's footsteps and honour the warriors who had died for the Jacobite cause, even if it meant going sword to sword with her brother in battle, a notion that made her stomach sour. At least she was faster and more agile than he was, and had bested him more than once in the past because of that. "We should turn back, my lady." Jenny glowered at the shadowy figure on the mount beside her. Her cousin Dirk was always with her on these nightly raids. "What did I tell you about calling me my lady when we're out?" She glanced back at the road, her hand on her pistol, ready to strike should a redcoat suddenly leap out in front of her. "Apologies, Mistress J." Jenny couldn't help but smile at the affectionate moniker her people had given her. It took away her title of lady, and also didn't give away her given name, keeping her identity shrouded in secrecy. It had only been a few months since she'd taken up her most sacred duty, and in that time she'd gained a reputation as a leader. "We canna go back now," Jenny said. "My brother will return any day now, and there is every chance Hamish will allow the English to billet at Nachmenbrach. That'll be a death sentence for me, for you, and for all loyal to the true and rightful Scottish king." Jenny shuddered at the thought of dozens of redcoats flooding.